Ready. We're
Live.
back. Welcome to this episode of Black Mirror, where we're discussing Bete Noire. This episode stars Maria, an employee at a candy company, whose world is turned upside down when old school friend Verity turns up and infiltrates her life. Let's discuss. So let's talk a little bit about our initial thoughts about this episode. Like, for me, when I first started watching it, if gaslighting could be shown on screen, this would be the example of gaslighting. I mean, from the very beginning, everyone was gaslighting, right? Even to the point where, and before we even really talk about the show, Netflix in and of itself has said that they released two versions of this episode, right? So Netflix out the gate was already gaslighting us in the show, right? Two episodes. And so how did you know which episode you were watching? The spelling of Barney's, the hat. So prior to the initial reveal of that little scene, which we'll get to in a few minutes, there was a outtake of the hat kind of sitting on the side of the corner of her desk or his desk after one of the scenes. There were two spellings of Barney's, with an A and with the E. So there are two versions of that episode, meaning some of us saw Barney spelled Barnies, and some of us saw the spelling Bernies. Did any of you recognize that? And what was your spelling? Yeah, you didn't recognize
I didn't catch it until it became a thing.
Right.
When it became a thing, I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I didn't catch it. I did not catch it until it became a thing.
So when I first started watching it, I noticed the emphasis that the camera was placed on the hat, and my spelling was Barnies. So when we get to it, we'll discuss the importance of that. But just a nice little way that Netflix is kind of trying to get into our heads, making us think, and question reality and question whether or not we're seeing what we're actually seeing. So, Elia, you are a master of words. Can you describe to us, what does the French term bête noire mean? And how do you think it is applicable to this episode?
All right. So, bête noire means literally black beast. And so, as an American, we want to translate things literal. So that's the first thing. Of course, when you put it into context, it could mean something completely different. So literally translates into black beast, but it's almost a social pariah, someone that's highly undesirable, or what have you. And so, in the realm of the episode, literally plays directly into that social pariah type thing, because Verity is wronged. She's absolutely wronged. When she's younger, they start this rumor about her. And when I say they, Maria included, in fact, she's the catalyst.
She is.
She's definitely the catalyst.
Which we don't find out till the end.
Right, to the very, very end. And so for me, it's just be leery of that person that's undesirable. Don't bully people. Watch out for that person who you think is just awkward and odd. Leave people alone, because it will come back to bite you in your ass.
Jermaine?
What am I talking about?
Bete Noire.
Bete Noire.
The name?
Yes.
I mean, I just learned something. Thank you, Elia.
So for me, like, being a social pariah, etc., but more so in how it relates to that feeling and Verity's little influences as a result of the little piece that she wears around her neck, and how she kind of starts to warp reality. So there are a couple instances where we see this take effect. So what impact does the instances of the Mandela effect have on Maria and her state of mind? So initially it starts off slow, right? Like, it's just she was supportive of Maria that one instance of regarding the flavor of the candy bar, and Verity used it in order to kind of change everyone's mind to be on Maria's side, right? And then later it kind of morphs into other instances. I think my favorite is the almond milk towards the end of the episode.
That was chaotic. Like it was a build. And so for me, I was seeing her doing the Karen thing to her, not knowing, on the back end, we're gonna find out that hey, Maria is not just innocent. And so this whole Mandela effect, having people just see things the way that she wants them to see it and not as it really is. It was really bizarre and high sci-fi for me. And so I did enjoy that piece because at first I was like, what the hell is going on? What's wrong with everybody? Down
Correct.
to the and when I say the Karen effect, specifically when she gets pulled into the office by her boss and the girl is holding on to her neck piece and she's like, stop yelling at me. Like, why are you yelling at me? And she's like, I'm not yelling. And I've experienced this. I've experienced this as a Black woman. And I'm not even loud. And so I'm like, what is she talking about yelling at her? And her boss agrees, like, you have been yelling. And I'm like, whoa, what am I
This is my normal speaking voice. This is my normal cadence.
So yeah, that whole Mandela effect was wild. And I'm like, I don't want no parts of that because that was just damaging Maria's psyche. This is her bread and butter, her career that she loves so much. And you have this person from your past that you already felt like was undesirable, but now she's kind of coveted at the job. And so you're the only one that kind of sees her for who she is. No one else can see it. So it was just really, really crazy.
And in turn, actually, she becomes the one that's the undesirable, right? And it's almost like there's almost layers to this episode, which Black Mirror does so well. But this episode in particular, there's layers to it. Like initially, there's the initial, outrage, right? But then when you peel it back a little bit, what does Verity's Karenism outbursts, right? How does that really translate to society, right? Like I know there's a lot to read into this episode, but it does make sense. Meaning, like, is Verity in her, and I don't want to say the way I want to say it, but Verity in her privilege, right? And the way that she is manipulating everyone and getting them to turn on Maria, do we think that is almost like a mimic of the way that society is, and that a lot of times we've experienced situations where others have used their privilege in order to turn things around in order to work in their favor? And do we think that this was intentional by Netflix and Black Mirror?
Speak on it.
Well, I want to answer your question, but I guess I didn't see it as privilege so much because I was so invested in the fact that she had this little clicker and the fact that originally she was seen as an outcast, a white woman. She was seen as an outcast, and so I didn't see it as privilege so much as Corey, just to kind of like to try to answer your question. I have seen people who have the ear of people in power, and a word from that person in power, even though it was sending people in the wrong direction, and you knew that their word was sending people in the wrong direction, we still went in that wrong direction. But because they still had, the ear of the person in power, it was brushed off like, oh, well, we tried something. But had it been someone who was, I don't know, like the black sheep of the group, suggesting the right thing, everyone would have like poured on like, no, that's not what we need to do.
You froze up a little bit. Okay, you're back.
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry. So I don't even know if you heard what I said.
Which is that last piece? Repeat that last piece.
To try to remember what I said. I just saw it from from the perspective of, a person who has the ear of the person in power.
Right.
And if you are not in that position, everyone else would have ganged up on you. That's it. That's all.
So, what other instances of the Mandela effect do we see in this episode? Are there any that are really kind of like, when you watched it, were you like, like, were you like,
Oh, okay, just the Virgo in me. Okay, the email thing would have sent me over the edge. I would have
yes,
probably flipped over everything in the office and really lost it behind. I know what I said. I don't even worry about what I said. I'm gonna show you what I sent in this email, because if nothing else, if you didn't type it, you didn't document it, it didn't happen. And so when
correct.
Ned Lynch sat up there and altered reality to where, okay, now my email is in question because
Mhm.
you've altered it. So that would have sent me over the edge because I know what I typed. So
Right.
that would have been affected it. Oh no, that was I would have went to jail.
And that right there, for someone like me, like if I'm sending an email, I'm going over that email 10, 15 times. I'm looking at my grammar. Is my grammar, did I put all my commas? Did I should this be a semicolon instead? Like, I know what I sent, right?
Mhm.
And for all of a sudden for it to be like completely changed. No.
Right.
And
No.
so it was a great revenge plot though, because you're messing with her psyche. You
Correct.
are tearing her down to where literally everybody around her, including her man, thinks she's crazy.
And
And
that's the
so
part that would have got me, is that everyone else in the world can think I'm this way, but if I get home and then you start and you are on that same bull that they own, when I know that you know that the correct spelling of this is B, whatever, then
it's not
that would
bad.
have set me off. That would have set me off.
So how do I say this? All right. So number one, when I go home and I'm talking to my significant other, I just want you to listen to me.
Yes.
I don't want you to solve anything. I don't want you to say, well, have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? And have you thought about this? No, bitch. Listen to what I'm saying. Just listen. If all you did was listen and just said, oh man, that sucks, all of a sudden I feel 75% better.
Which is essentially what I want, but I can honestly say that's not always what I do. I gotta come with the solution.
Me too. I'm a solution person. I'm trying to figure out, well, have you thought about doing this? Can you do this? What about if you said this? What if you did this? And ultimately, even in friendships, sometimes I do that. And I have to purpose in my mind to ask people now, hey, do you want my opinion, or do you want me just to listen to you? Right. And I think the explosion that we saw in this episode could have, between her and her partner, could have been avoided.
But check this out. So like when she got that phone call, now let me say this. Some things happened a little too fast in this particular episode. That phone call was something that happened a little too fast for me.
Right.
And what I mean by that was, like, all of a sudden she just knew what the fuck was happening just by that one phone call. But that one phone call put things into perspective. And if you were, someone's significant other, you should have been, I don't know, cognizant enough just to listen to what she had to say. And some of those things should have / could have made sense for you. Probably still been like, this is some crazy shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, be there for your person.
Yeah. Yeah. The funny one for me was the instance of changing as a result of that email, right? Prior to, and then the subsequent email, the changing of the flavor to include beef to an individual who views, beef as sacred, and that flavor that he's so, it's good. That just,
it's seaweed.
that sent me.
And my girl standing in the background, like, her face was priceless.
Like she was like, oh. And ultimately, the other piece too is the whole reaction of the boss, and how he was solely in Verity's camp, but we know that that was a result of her changing realities, right? So we kind of already alluded to it. What exactly does Verity, what is her ability, or quote unquote, what has she made up that has allowed her to alter reality?
She an evil genius.
Right.
She's a tech, and I don't even want to say wizard because it's beyond that. Like to be able to have that level of knowledge to alter reality based on I don't know all the not psychological, the scientific terms to use for what it is that she has done. But my goodness. And
Mhm.
again, all fueled by a revenge plot,
Revenge.
you know?
Revenge. So when we find out, when we get to the end in most of these types of shows, the part where they explain it all, right, where the villain tells the plot, right, and tells you why they're doing what they're doing, and much like we talked about in our previous episodes with, and if you're not, you need to be watching our discussion on Last of Us, plug, how within Last of Us, that last episode, it challenged the idea of the villain. Does Verity telling the story and subsequently us realizing that Maria actually is partially at fault for the way that why this girl feels the way that she feels, does that really change how we feel about Verity?
No, and let me tell you why.
But she still did that fucked up shit.
She still killed the girl.
She
She
did.
she had to have been killing other people too. That was just the only one that she found out about, right?
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, she was probably creating that device well before. I mean, she was working on it. I think that's what I heard her say. She was working on it even in high school. And something that I wanted to say previously, I didn't get a chance to speak. But can you imagine, like, we're talking about time space continuum type shit. Like she's able to go back in time to change shit. Like she said parallel universes or parallel realities or whatever it was she said. Like who the fuck does that? And then how is it that you can fit it into this little pendant and made several of them?
Mm-hmm.
Who else has this technology? Like, yeah, she's smart, but is she that smart? Like, can you imagine how much that had to have cost and how much time and all that other good stuff? And once you've done all these things, why would you care about revenge?
That's the kicker. That's
So
the
that
kicker.
speaks to her deep-rooted mental illness.
She's crazy.
But wait, that was brought on by the constant bullying and et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, you guys know the impact that bullying can have on people. Not giving it an excuse, right? Not saying that's an excuse to do what she did, but does it explain her character a little bit and make you kind of sympathize with her a little bit?
No.
Or do you think it's a show just trying to gaslight us, right? Making us think that Maria was the victim of the show at the whole time. And ultimately neither one of these characters are the hero or the victim. They're both.
Yeah.
Flawed.
Say it again.
I'm sorry.
Would you say?
Can I say it again?
Say it.
I just said they're both flawed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. They're flawed individuals. But you know, the funny part at the end of the episode when she has the opportunity, and ultimately after the confrontation in her apartment, you know, in the struggle, she shoots her in the head, and just in the nick of time before she's gunned down by the police, she's able to get a hold of the device, and of course she then goes and does the exact same thing that Verity does that she told her she did when she first realized that she had created this technological advancement that had this capacity, right? She became the empress of the world, the ruler of the world, right? And in a sense, I hated that ending, right? I felt like that was a cop out, right? I felt like that was a cop out in a way. What are your thoughts?
I feel like it just made Maria look even worse. Like
It did. Exactly.
You still not, because you didn't have to do it that way. Like,
Nope.
and of course, neither did Verity. And so, to Jermaine's point, yes, they're both extremely flawed. I did not feel sorry for Verity. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
I
don't get
didn't
me
either.
wrong, I'm not a fan of like bullying or anything like that. And people can be pushed to do unsavory things when you mess with people. Leave people alone. And so that just makes me feel like, to the lengths she went, you were already unhinged.
Mm-hmm.
Because when is enough enough? Like, okay, you didn't have somebody, unalive themselves. You've done a lot. You've lived 50 million lifetimes and you're still not satiated. And
Correct.
so even if you would have had Maria unalive herself or actually do it yourself, you still, that wouldn't be enough.
Mm-hmm.
So you're unhinged already. You're absolutely unhinged. And so to me, the punishment doesn't fit the crime, so to speak, when it comes to this whole thing. But in the end, it just made me look at Maria like, oh, you definitely ain't worth two dead flies smashed. Because you
She really
snapped
ain't.
right into it. You
She
really
snapped right
did.
into that access of power, right? And if she was worth if she was worth anything, she would have just kind of reverted her life back to where she was, right? Or go into a spot where Verity did not exist and she could continue on the path that she was living. But she chose
Or
to
just
be Empress of
read.
the world,
Just
right?
redo, or you didn't even have to say Verity didn't exist. I wish I never started that rumor,
Correct.
or whatever. And hey, however things turned out with Verity after that, that's another story. But oh no, that's not what you came up with.
That's not what she did. That's not what she did. She's so, and ultimately, she's probably going to go through that same cycle that Verity did, right? To an extent. This would actually be a great series.
This is the girl from Domino Day.
I think so. I think that is
You
her.
are the one that told me about Domino Day.
I know. And
Like,
I didn't put it together until you just said that. That is exactly who that is.
what do you call Domino Day? What's the rest of the name of it? Something witch.
Modern day witch. I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel like that's her.
I think it is her. I think it is her. Jermaine, thoughts on this, on the finale of this, as we close out this discussion on this episode of Black Mirror?
So, just to be honest, all right. So I was putting all of this together while I was listening, so I didn't get to see a whole lot. I did see up until the point where she was in Verity's room. I just heard certain stuff, and I was like, "Oh, clearly they're fighting." And then the police came, and then I don't know, some kind of way she got the pendant from her. So there's not a whole lot that I can comment on, just to be honest.
Would you have done the same thing that Maria did? If given the access to the power, would you have done that the same way?
So, okay, so this is how I saw it. So in that moment, she was up against the police, right?
Yeah. And that was first thought.
So like you're gonna say the first thing that comes to your mind. So I don't really not doubt her. I don't really have an opinion about what she said to like get herself off, because they wanted to arrest her, they wanted to question her and all the other good stuff. So I understood why she said what she said. It was just
to get themselves off.
Right. So like I don't fault her for that. It's just the juxtaposition between what Verity was and what she now is. It was just kind of like, okay, that's not parody, and because it's not parody, that's not fair. And so that's really where my mind went.
Exactly. It's not fair because she's still, even though she made a mistake when she was a teenager. I mean, how many of us didn't make mistakes when we were teenagers? And I can't tell you how many bald-faced heifers I didn't call people and bald mouth and talk about their mama, their grandmama, and everybody else. Right now, I have. I mean, I have. I have. So when I was younger, I used words to defend myself when I felt like I couldn't defend myself physically. Right. So, but I say all that to say, I still wouldn't have chosen what she have chosen. But ultimately, Maria is still, it's not parody because she still did not deserve to be put in that situation, right? She didn't deserve it. She just didn't. So I kind of felt like it was unfair to her as a character too.
But I think Verity should have died. That's what she got.
Yeah. Yeah.
She took it too far.
That's what I think.
She took it too far.
Living the rest of your life as the queen or the empress of the world, or however you put it, and having people bend
worship you basically,
and let that be enough and go on.
Yeah. But it was a good episode. I really did like this episode. I
like this episode better than I liked the last episode.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I didn't hate the last episode. I just like this one better.
So what would you give it?
So refreshing, Corey. That is so refreshing because you hate everyone. Yeah, I was just playing, but I'm serious.
That's your face.
How would you rate this episode, Corey?
I would rate it. I would rate it probably a 7.5 or a 7. Actually, probably a 7, not a 7.5. I give it a 7 because of the gaslighting aspect, and it was unique how they did some things within the episode, like the 2 different episodes that they released, and which tied into the theme of the show and all this other kind of stuff. I thought that was really cool. So, yeah.
Oh yeah.
For me, this episode would probably be a 6.5. I feel like at the very end, like with how they closed it out with the whole Empress thing and all that, I feel like it was a little flat the way that it came across for me.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it was just kind of low budget, like right at the end after all of this technology stuff happening. It just looked a little cheap in the end for me, and so that kind of brought it down a little. Did enjoy the episode though.
Mm-hmm.
I would give it a 7, and I would give it a 7 only because, like I said earlier, there were certain parts that just kind of happened a little too fast, and it was kind of like, wait, hold up, slow down. You could have built up to this. This could have been like, like a whodunit type thing, and let me try and figure this shit out. But all of it in one phone call, and then like even that last scene in the bedroom, it was like that could have been, spaced out, and we could have learned a little bit more, and we could have, perhaps even, like their 2 characters coming together, and then all of a sudden at the last minute, Maria decides that she's gonna, lunge for the thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could have been a little different. That's me trying to be a writer or a producer. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, if we had the money, I bet you we could come up with some good stuff.
Yeah. But I would still give it a 7. I would give it a 7. Yeah.
I would open several brothels.
Yeah. Yes. No. Corey?
Well, thank you guys for joining us on this episode where we discuss Black Mirror, and stay tuned to the next one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.